Unshakable peace, Achancha. The whole reason for studying the Dhamma is to search for a way to transcend suffering and attain peace and happiness. Whether we study physical or mental phenomena, citta or its psychological factor, it's only when we make liberation from suffering our ultimate goal that we are on the right path. Nothing less. Suffering has a cause and conditions for its existence. Please clearly understand that when the mind is still, it's in its natural state. As soon as the mind moves, it becomes conditional. When the mind is attracted to something, it becomes conditioned. When aversion arises, it becomes conditioned. The desire to move here and there arises from conditioning. If our awareness doesn't keep pace with this mental proliferation as they occur, the mind will chase after them and be conditioned by them. Whenever the mind moves, at that moment it becomes a conventional reality. When the mind falls for something, what we are aware of is the pain. Whereas all this suffering, pain, grief, and despair come from? It didn't come from theory in the book. There isn't anywhere where the details of our sufferings are written down. Our pain won't correspond exactly with the theory. Theory and reality. The Buddha did not teach about the mind and its psychological factors so that we'd get attracted to the concepts. His sole intention was that he would recognize them as impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self. Then let go, lay them aside, be aware and know them as they arise. This mind has already been conditioned. It's been trained and conditioned to turn away and spin out from a state of pure awareness. Whatever we experience, it all arises from within knowing. If this mind did not exist, the knowing would not exist either. All this is a phenomena of the mind. As the Buddha said, the mind is merely the mind. It's not a being, a person, a self, or yourself. It's neither us nor them. Dhamma is simply the Dhamma. It is a natural, selfless process. It does not belong to us or anybody else. It's not anything. Whatever an individual experiences, it all falls within 5 fundamental categories: body, feeling, perception, thoughts, and consciousness. The Buddha said to let it all go. Meditation is like a single stick of wood. Insight is one end and serenity the other. Vipassana is one end, samatha is the other. If we pick it up, does only one end come up or do both? Buddha examined the causes and conditions underlying existence and rebirth. As long as he had not yet fully penetrated the matter and understood the truth, he continued to probe deeper and deeper with the peaceful mind, reflecting on how all things come into existence. His investigation forged ahead until it was clear to him that everything that comes into existence is like a lump of red-hot iron. The five categories of beings experience, five skandhas, are all a lump of red-hot iron. When a lump of iron is glowing red-hot, is there anywhere it can be touched without getting burnt? Is there anywhere at all that is cool? Impossible. This searing lump of iron is entirely red hot. We cannot even attach to serenity. If we identify with that piece, assuming that there is someone who is calm and serene, this reinforces the sense that there is an independent self or soul. Before enlightenment, the Buddha knew that the conditions for existence had not yet ceased. His work was not yet finished. Focusing on life's conditionality, he contemplated in accordance with nature. Due to this cause, there is birth. Due to birth, there is a death, and all this movement of coming and going. So the Buddha took up these themes for contemplation in order to understand the truth about the five skandhas. Mind isn't born belonging to anyone. It doesn't die as anyone's. This mind is free, brilliantly radiant. The reason problems arise is because the mind is deluded by conditioned things, deluded by these misconceptions of self. So the Buddha taught to observe this mind. In the beginning, what is there? There is truly nothing there. It doesn't arise with the conditioned things, and it doesn't die with them. When the mind encounters something good, it doesn't change to be good. When the mind encounters something bad, it doesn't become bad. That's how it is when there is clear insight into one's nature. There is understanding that this is essentially a substanceless state of affairs. The Buddha's insight saw it all as impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self. He wants us to fully comprehend in the same way. The knowing then knows in accordance with the truth. When it knows happiness or sorrow, it remains unmoved. The impression of happiness is a form of birth. The tendency to become sad is a form of death. When there is death, there is birth. And what is born has to die. That which arises and passes away is caught in this unremitting cycle of becoming. Once the meditator's mind comes to this state of understanding, no doubt remains about whether there is further becoming and rebirth. There is no need to ask anyone else. The Buddha comprehensively investigated the conditioned phenomena and so was able to let it all go. The five skandhas were let go of, and the knowing carried on merely as an impartial observer of the process. If he experienced something positive, he didn't become positive along with it. He simply observed and remained aware. If he experienced something negative, he didn't become negative. And why was that? Because his mind has become cut free from such causes and conditions. It penetrated the truth. The conditions leading to rebirth no longer existed. This is the knowing that is certain and reliable. This is a mind that is truly at peace. This is what is not born, doesn't age, doesn't get sick, and doesn't die. This is neither cause nor effect, nor dependent on cause and effect. It is independent of the process of causal conditioning. The causes then cease with no conditioning remain. This mind is above and beyond birth and death, above and beyond happiness and sorrow. What can you say? It's beyond the limitations of language to describe it. All supporting conditions have ceased, and any attempt to describe it will merely lead to attachment. The words used then become the theory of the mind. Theoretical description of the mind and its workings are accurate, but the Buddha realized that this type of knowledge was relatively useless. He understands something intellectually and then believes it, but it's of no real benefit. It doesn't lead to peace of mind. The knowing of the Buddha leads to letting go. It results in abandoning and renunciation. Because it's precisely this mind that leads us to get involved with both what's right and what's wrong. If we were smart, we get involved with those things that are right. If we were stupid, we get involved with those things that are wrong. Such a mind is the Word, and the Blessed One took the things of this world to examine this very Word. Having come to know the world as it actually was, he was then known as the one who clearly comprehends the world. Concerning this issue of samatha and vipassana, the important thing is to develop these states in our own hearts. Only when we genuinely cultivate them ourselves will we know what they really are. We can go and study what all the books say about psychological factors of the mind. But that kind of intellectual understanding is useless for actually cutting off selfish desire, anger, and delusion. We only study the theory about selfish desire, anger, and delusion, merely describing the various characteristics of the mental defilements. We truly have to look deeply into our own hearts if we want to experience the fruits of this practice. Attempting to describe the psychology of the mind in terms of the numerous separated moments of consciousness and their different characteristics is not taking the practice far enough. Practicing Dhamma is thus extremely important. When I practiced, that's how I studied. I didn't know anything about mind moments or psychological factors. I just observed the quality of knowing. If a thought of hate arose, I asked myself, why? If a thought of love arose, I asked myself, why? This is the way. Whether it's labeled as a thought or called a psychological factor, so what? Just penetrate this one point until you are able to resolve these feelings of love and hate. When I was able to stop loving and hating under any circumstances, I was able to transcend the suffering. Then it doesn't matter what happens. The heart and mind are released and at ease. Nothing remains. It has all stopped. Practice like this. If people want to talk a lot about theory, that's their business. But no matter how much it's debated, the practice always comes down to this single point right here. When something arises, it arises right here. When it ceases, the cessation is right here. Where else? The Buddha called this point the knowing. When it knows the way things are accurately, in line with the truth, will understand the meaning of mind. Things increasingly deceive. As you study them, they are simultaneously deceiving you. Unshakable peace. I once stayed in the forest monastery that was half a mile from a village. One night the villagers were celebrating with a loud party as I was walking meditation. It must have been after 11 and I was feeling a bit peculiar. I'd been feeling strange like this since midday. My mind was quiet. There were hardly any thoughts. I felt very relaxed at ease. I did walking meditation until I was tired and then went to sit in my grass-roofed hut. As I sat down, I barely had time to cross my legs before. Amazingly, my mind just wanted to delve into a profound state of peace. It happened all by itself. As soon as I sat down, the mind became peaceful. It was rock solid. It wasn't as if I couldn't hear the noise of the villagers. But I could also shut the sound out entirely. Strange. When I didn't pay attention to the sound, it was perfectly quiet. It was like there were two objects in my mind that were placed side by side but not touching. I could see that the mind and its object of awareness were separate and distinct. Just like this teaspoon and water kettle here. Then I understood. When the mind unifies in samadhi, if you direct your attention outward, you can hear. But if you let it dwell in its emptiness, then it's perfectly silent. When sound was perceived, I could see that the knowing and the sound were distinctly different. I contemplated. If this isn't the way it is, how else could it be? That's the way it is. These two things were totally separate. I continued on investigating. When the perceived continuity of a phenomena is cut, the result is peace. The previous illusion of continuity transformed into peace of mind. So I continued to sit, putting effort into the meditation. The mind at that time was focused solely on the meditation, indifferent to everything else. I could have taken it easy, but it wouldn't have been because of laziness, tiredness. Not at all. They were absent from the heart. There was only perfect inner balance and equipoise. Eventually, I did take a break, but it was only the posture of sitting that changed. My heart remained constant, unwavering, and unflagging. I pulled the pillow over, intending to take a rest. As I reclined, the mind remained just as peaceful as it had been before. Then, just before my head hit the pillow, the mind's awareness began flowing inward. I didn't know where it was headed, but it kept flowing deeper and deeper. It was like a current of electricity flowing down a cable to a switch. When it hit the switch, my body exploded with a deafening bang. The knowing during that time was extremely lucid and subtle. Once past that point, the mind was released to penetrate deep inside. It went inside to the point where there wasn't anything at all. Having dwelt internally for some time, the mind then retreated to flow back out. But when I say it retreated, I don't mean to imply that I made it flow back out. I was simply an observer, only knowing and witnessing. The mind came out more and more until it finally returned to normal. Once my normal state of consciousness returned, the question came, what was that? The answer came immediately. These things happen of their own accord. You don't have to search for the explanation. This answer was enough to satisfy my mind. The power of samadhi. Everything I've been relating to you concerns the mind flowing the way of nature. This was no theoretical description of the mind or of psychological states. There's no need for that. When there's faith, you get in there and really do it. The samadhi is a rest stop. The Buddha stopped and rested here. It forms the foundation for contemplation and vipassana. However, it's not necessary to have such a profound samadhi as this in order to observe the conditions around us. So, keep on steadily contemplating the process of cause and effect. To do this, we focus the peace and clarity of our minds to analyze the sights, sounds, smells, taste, sensation, thoughts, and mental states we experience. Examine moods and emotions, whether positive or negative. Examine everything. It's just like someone else has climbed up a mango tree and is shaking down the fruits while we wait underneath to gather them up. The ones which are rotten we don't pick up, just gather the good mangoes. It's not exhausting because we don't have to climb up the tree. We simply wait underneath to reap the fruit. Do you get the meaning of this smile? Everything experienced with a peaceful mind confers great understanding. No longer do we create a proliferating interpretation around what is experienced. Wealth, fame, blame, praise, happiness, unhappiness come of their own accord. And we are at peace. We are wise. It's actually fun. Working in accord with nature. If we realize enlightenment in this lifetime, that's good. If we have to wait until our next life, it's okay too. We have faith and unfaltering conviction in the Dhamma. Whether we progress quickly or slowly is up to our inner capabilities. Practicing like this puts the heart at ease. It is like chili plant we are nurturing. Give it water and fertilizer and it will do the job of absorbing the nutrients. When ants come to infest it, we chase them away. Doing just this much is enough for the chili to grow beautifully. Once you are in the stream, you know what your responsibilities are. You comprehend the work. Changing our vision. In my life of practicing Dhamma, I didn't attempt to master a wide range of subjects. Just one. I refined this heart. Say we look at the baby. If we find that we are attracted to a baby, then analyze it. Have a good look. Hair, body hair, nails, teeth, and skin. The Buddha taught us to thoroughly and repeatedly complete these parts of the body. These days, there are many people teaching Vipassana. I'll say this, doing Vipassana is not easy. We cannot just jump straight into it. It won't work if it's not proceeding from a high standard of morality. Find out for yourself. Moral discipline and training precepts are very necessary. When starting to cultivate the serenity of samatha meditation, don't make the mistake of trying once or twice and then give up because the mind is not peaceful. When we undertake to train the mind to be at peace with every situation, please understand that in the beginning, when a defiled emotion comes up, the mind won't be peaceful. It's going to be distracted. Why? Because there's craving. We don't want our mind to think. We don't want to experience any distracting moods. Not wanting is craving. The craving for non-existence. The more we crave not to experience certain things, the more we invite and usher them in. Craving not to experience something, craving to be at peace, craving not to be distracted. It's our craving. It's all a red-hot chunk of iron. But never mind. Just get on with the practice. Whenever we experience a mood or emotion, examine it in terms of its impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and selfless quality, and toss it into one of these three categories. Then reflect and investigate. Following the middle path is the shortest and most direct path. You can come and argue with me on points of Dhamma, but I won't join in. In my own search, I tried nearly every possible means of contemplation. I sacrificed my life for the Dhamma because I had faith in the reality of enlightenment and the path to get there. These things actually do exist, just like the Buddha said they did. But to realize them takes practice, right practice. It takes pushing yourself to the limit. It takes the courage to train and to fundamentally change. It takes the courage to actually do what it takes. And how do you do it? Train the heart. Dhamma practice is very demanding. People don't examine things clearly. Generally, they lose the path on either the side of the self-indulgence or self-torment. They get stuck in these two extremes. If you are going to take up this monastic training, you have to walk this middle way, not getting worked up about either happiness or unhappiness. Walking down the middle path of the Buddha is challenging. People who crave existence are blind to what's in the middle. Dedication to the practice. I've told you a few brief stories about how I practiced. I didn't have a lot of knowledge. What I did study was this heart and mind of mine, and I learned in a natural way through experimentation. When I liked something, then I examined what was going on. It would drag me to some distant suffering. My practice was to observe myself. Practice with unflinching dedication. If you want to practice Dhamma, then please try not to think too much. If you are meditating and you find yourself trying to force specific results, then it's better to stop. When your mind settles down to become peaceful and then you think, that's it, then stop. Take all your analytical and theoretical knowledge, wrap it up and store it away in a chest, and don't drag it out for discussion or to teach. When the reality of something is seen, is not the same as the written descriptions. The theoretical teachings are accurate, but it's essential to bring them into our heart. It must be internalized. If the Dhamma isn't brought into the heart, it's not truly known. It's not actually seen. I was no different. I didn't study extensively, but I did do enough to pass some of the exams on Buddhist theory. One day I had the opportunity to listen to a Dhamma talk from a meditation master. As I listened, some disrespectful thoughts came up. I didn't know how to listen to a real Dhamma talk. I couldn't figure out what this wandering meditation monk was talking about. He was teaching as though it was coming from his own direct experience, as if he was after the truth. As times went on and I gained some first-hand experience in the practice, I saw for myself the truth of what the monk taught. I understood how to understand. Insight followed in its wake. Dhamma was taking root in my own heart. It was a long time before I realized that everything that wandering monk had taught came from what he'd seen for himself. The Dhamma he taught came directly from his own experience. He spoke according to his understanding and insight. When I walked the path, I came across every detail he had described. Try to take every opportunity you can to put effort into Dhamma practice. Whether it's peaceful or not, don't worry about it at this point. The highest priority is to set the wheels of practice in motion, and create the cause for future liberation. Practicing Dhamma means upholding virtue, developing samadhi, and cultivating wisdom in our hearts. Remember and reflect on the triple gem, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and Sangha. Abandon everything without exception. Our own actions are the causes and conditions that will ripen in this very life. So strive on with sincerity. Even if we have to sit in a chair to meditate, it's still possible to focus our attention. In the beginning, we don't have to focus on many things, just our breath. If we prefer, we can mentally repeat the word Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. While focusing attention, resolve not to control the breath. If breathing seems laborious or uncomfortable, this indicates we are not approaching it rightly. Respect the tradition. It's high time we started to meditate. Don't forsake the style of practice and meditation technique of the eminent forest masters such as Venerable Ajahn Mun. The path they taught is utterly reliable and true. Give it a try. Do it just like I say. If you actually do it, you'll see the Dhamma. If you actually undertake the search, what would stop you? The defilements of the mind will be vanished if you approach them with the right strategy. Develop this type of understanding. Give living in the forest a try and come stay in one of these tiny huts. Trying out this training for a while and testing it for yourself would be of far greater value than you just reading a book. I'm telling you, it's great fun to closely observe how the mind works. I could happily talk about this one subject whole day. This is the Buddha's firm and unshakable awareness that watches over and protects the mind. You are here. Since the moment you emerged from the womb, every visitor that's ever come to call has arrived right here. Knowing them all, the Buddha's awareness sits alone, firm and unshakable. Mastering the meditation. If you have a look for yourself, you will encounter certain experience. There is a path to guide you and offer directions. As you carry on, the situation changes and you have to adjust your approach to remedy the problems that come up. It's just like hearing a sound. The hearing is one thing, the sound another, and we are consciously aware of both without compounding the event. Discuss Dhamma with yourself. Unravel and release feeling, memory, perception, thinking, intentions, and consciousness. Nothing will be able to touch them as they continue to perform their functions on their own. In the beginning, physical seclusion is important. When you live alone in isolation, you will recall the words of Venerable Sariputta, physical seclusion is a cause and condition for the rising of mental seclusion, state of profound samadhi. Another way to approach Dhamma practice is to contemplate and examine everything we see, do, and experience. Never discard the meditation. The contemplation that leads to the Dhamma is the contemplation of conditionality, the process of cause and effect.